Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show, we have something a little different. We have Erik Jones, manager of my local comic book shop, Color Fantasies, here in Winchester, Virginia. And we talk about Erik's comic book journey and how it's led him to manage one of the best shops in the country, how Color values not just its customers, but indie creators and comics of all sorts, and, well, comics. So much about comics. All of this and so much more in today's Inspired Inc. What like was the connection between wrestling and comics for you? What was that?
No, not really. It's funny. I liked wrestling when I was like little. And then when I was like, I don't know, 6, my dad was like, well, you know, it's fake. And I was like, well, and then in like high school, I got back into it because I had a buddy who just wouldn't shut up about it.
Oh, shit.
And so I was like, all right, I'll watch, fine. And then I was just hooked.
Oh, that's rad. Yeah, I remember growing up like with wrestling, like when I was a kid in general, and just I was in love with it, and it was super fun. And for some reason, like in like middle school or something, I was like, no, this is lame. Like it's fake, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of grown dudes and blah blah blah. And then I had friends that were like, when I was working in retail and everything, and they're like, what do you mean you don't like wrestling? You know, and I'm like, you're like in your 20s and 30s liking wrestling. They're like, it's grown-ups that are, you know, really ripped, dressing up and fighting each other. Does that not appeal to you at all, Brandon? And I was like, you know what? I didn't think about it. Like I didn't see the
it's one of those things that you're either into it or you're not. It's
Yeah.
like comics, although I feel like comics is could be more for everybody. But yeah, I don't know. I got super into it, and then like we would like I didn't talk to a couple guys for like a year or so, and then got back into it, and they were like, well, you know, we can wrestle in our apartment, like filming it. And so then we started doing that, and then we were wrestling in bars and restaurants around here with no ring.
Oh my, that's so cool.
And then met a guy, an actual wrestler came out to some of our shows and was helping us out. And then through him in MySpace, I saw like a seminar for a guy that I really liked in Philly. And I was like, well, I'll go check that out because I was thinking of moving there anyway for a different school. And then it just snowballed from there.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, that's like the one way to be like a real world superhero in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel
you
like
get to be a character. You get to turn yourself up to, 11 or do something completely different. And just, I don't know. I got no regrets. Like there's things I want to do but didn't, but I don't regret it. But like I got to travel. I got to be in a movie.
Oh, that's cool.
I got made friends. Like it's cool. Like just to be like see your friends on TV.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like I'm more happy for them than. And I'm like, because I don't know, I was a couple years in, and my friends were like, well, we want to try to get on this place on TV. And one day I was like, I just don't want to. Like, that's too much work.
Yeah, I think there's a line even for like creators where, especially indie creators, like there's certain routes you can go. And depending on like your energy and like what you're really wanting to do or what your passion is overall for it, it's like, do I want to go down this certain route or do I make my own path?
It's like comics or anything else. Like you got to commit. Like, 100%. And I was just like, no. Like, I loved it. And I still love it, but I just don't really want to do it anymore. Like, I'm 40, my knees are bad. Like,
I mean, it's kind of like me and music in a sense. Like, I love playing music still. I love picking up my bass. I love like learning pieces. Like, I kind of wish I could get back on stage and do stuff, but then again, it's like, I couldn't do that 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
I couldn't go on tour for another 2.5 months and figure that out. Like I couldn't imagine living that.
I love playing music, but like now I'm like, I just like playing in my friend's basement.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to, like you said, you can't be just running after shows. And I don't have that drive.
Yeah. Drive, energy. Like there's nothing really paid off enough for it previously to make it be like, oh, well, this is going to pay my rent for the month, like.
I mean, I had a friend who was a drummer in like a huge metal band. And after a while, he was like, I just don't want to fucking tour anymore.
Yeah.
And now he does like tech stuff for Sony.
Oh, wow.
And he still plays drums and he'll record stuff. And like every now and then we'll go do like one show, but he's just like, I don't want to be in a van with a bunch of dudes pissing in bottles.
Yeah. I feel that life too much. Yeah. Honestly, like, I mean, that'd be really cool if I ever wrote like, like an EP that went along to like Teenage Babylon or Fake or Death.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Like just kind of doing it for myself more than anything else, and relating it to what I do now, comics and publishing and stuff. Like that'd be fun. But I could it'd be cool to play a show or two like that, but then I wouldn't be able to carry it on, and it's too much. But like, I think that's why comics are kind of cool because like, especially as an indie creator, it's like going on tour without the whole band.
Yeah.
And I do a show and I get to promote everyone. It's just me, and
Yeah.
it kind of
And then
works
you get
out.
to go home.
Yeah, you get to go home. Yeah, that's a fun part. Yeah.
There's not a convention every other night.
And so, how did like, okay, like wrestling was a big part of your life, music was a big part of mine, and like, how did you get involved with Four Color, and where did your relationship begin with the shop?
So, I mean, I was born and raised here in town.
Oh, okay.
Like I was born at the old hospital. And I always liked comics, but I got them like the gas station or whatever. I didn't even know Four Color was there.
Oh, right. How long has it been
87.
around? 87.
So,
that's so cool.
I don't know if it's you know where the bookshelf is on Featherbed?
Yeah.
When Four Color started, it was a room in the back of the bookshelf.
Oh.
So the lady had like some comics, and Mike was working there in between school, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to just take that over and buy everything?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I guess," because like he was going to school to be a librarian, and like all the jobs had filled up because it was the end of the year, and most of those jobs fill up in the summer. And he's like, "Well, yeah, okay, maybe I'll just do this for a little bit." And so he took over, and he was in the back room for like a couple, 2-3 years maybe. And then 89, he got the house.
Oh, nice.
And he lives next door. So like he was able to get both. And
that's a cool deal too. I love that setup.
Yeah.
Like,
and again, like you're used to his house now is the tower.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, it was just a little white house.
Oh, dang.
And so I moved to Philly and came back for like Free Comic Book Day one year, Apple Blossom. And I was like, what is this? Because he had this tower. But so then when I was like 11, I started shopping there. Because maybe before that, like 5th grade or something, my best friend went there a couple times. And it was just like overload, and summer 95, this will age me, the Blockbuster video game championships were going on. And so it was me and 2 of my brothers, and my brother Daniel got first place in his age group, and my little brother and I got first and second in our age group. And the prizes were like, a free rental and one of those boxes they used to give out that had like popcorn and candy and stuff. And then they had some Marvel cards, and they had funny money. Wow. Like they'd gone to local places to get stuff.
That's cool.
And my brothers were like, I don't give a shit about comics. So I was like, I love comics. Why not? So I went there and been going ever since. Like I still have the first back issue I bought there with that funny money. I still have the first single I bought off the shelf. And then my brother's friend worked there in high school and a little after. And then when I was 15, like every time I was like, you guys hired. Cool. And then finally like, well, yeah, we can use you part-time. So like a month before I turned 16, I started working there.
Oh, wow.
And worked there for a couple years. And then 18, I'm trying to think. 18, it was like half and half because there was another kid working there and another guy. And then I was delivering pizzas, and it fell back a little bit. And then when I was 20, I just kind of stopped going there. You're 20.
Yeah. I think we all have a gap in our comic book loving lives, so and we just forget.
20, 21, 22, I was still reading comics, but it was like, well, I can buy booze and DVDs and all that stuff. And so I was still buying comics. I still loved them, but just fell out of it, and then moved away, and then didn't go to the shop for a couple years. Came home, and I moved home 2010. So like 2011, I was there every week anyway, buying stuff. And then the new 52 was starting. I was like, screw it. I'm going all in. I got like 37 of those.
Yeah. I got a lot of those. That's when I think a lot of us, it was a good onboarding point for people.
It's like, hey, and because I'd been in Jersey, I was going to a shop in Delaware that I love. And that's what got me back into like buying comics regularly. Because again, like I fell out, but I was getting trades. But then I lived in Philly. I was like, well, I need something to read. And there was a comic shop near my house. And so I picked up Dark Tower.
Oh, sick.
And so Stephen King's my favorite. Those are my favorite books.
I forget there's a comic of that. Yeah.
They're great. They were great. They fell off at the end. But I was like, okay, I can buy one.
Were they like an expansion of the book, or were they like retelling of the book?
Like the first series is basically the 4th book. And then they kind of fill in between the 4th and I guess maybe like the first book, because the 4th is a prequel.
Oh, okay.
And then they once they go a little bit past the book and expand, I was like, I'm not really digging these and changing things because I'm picky.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, understandable.
But that's what got me back into buying singles. And then when I lived in Jersey, my roommate was like, oh, me and my buddy go down to this place in Delaware. I was like, well, I'll go along. And then it was like, let me get a subscription.
Yeah.
And so then when I moved home, I started picking up stuff again. And then New 52, I was back in. And then still going in every week. And I was working in Manassas. And I came, I don't know, I came by on like a Tuesday or something, and I was talking to Mike, and there was a girl named Brittany that worked there, and she was off or whatever. I was like, where is everybody? Mike's like, oh, well, Brittany's sick, Steve's at school, Owen's not coming in. I was like, he's like, I gotta do the poll. And I was like, you want any help? Like, I used to do this, with you. And then it haven't stopped.
Oh man.
And so I was just helping out for store credit, and then
that's a good trade-off.
which I needed because my box was getting full. And Mike was like, well, hey, I can either pay you minimum wage or I can give you a credit with a little more. And I was like, I could really use the credit right now.
Definitely work out for all of us.
So I was just working in the back and I like organizing comics. It's
fun,
calming. And like, I was working a job that I hated. And so then I was there for, that was probably 2014. And so for like 3 years, I was just I'd work 40 hours and I'd leave the job in Manassas and go right to the shop and work all day Saturday. And then we went to the retailer summit in Baltimore, and I just had a blast. Like, just retail stuff with comics. I love it. I love talking about comics. I love selling comics. And the next day was maybe Labor Day or the next week, whatever. And Mike was off and I was off, and we were working on a big consignment of we were appraising somebody's collection. So it was like 100 boxes that we were putting in order.
Dude, those are always fun to go through too.
And it was like 100 boxes and no order. So it's like, well, let's put each box into one alphabet. Let's put it all into one alphabet. And
steps.
And like Mike was like, I don't want to go to work. I was like, yeah, me neither. And then I was just like, Mike, if you're hired anytime soon, man, I would come back. I don't care what the pay is. Like, and he's like, well, because he basically offered it to me a year before, but I wasn't ready. Because I was like, well, I'm trying to make this much money. And Steve was still in school, and there's another guy there that was the manager kind of by default. And I was like, well, if there's ever an opening, please let me know. And then Steve was going to move away. And so Mike's like, well, okay, you'll come on. And so I quit the job in Manassas, came in full-time in 2017. And the other guy left, and then Steve ended up not moving. So Steve and I were like the perfect team. Like,
oh, cool.
Whatever I couldn't do, he could, and vice versa. And we kind of changed Free Comic Book Day around the way we did it, and just not became goofy. We were already goofy, but like just had fun.
Were you guys the ones that brought in like creators to the shop too?
Yeah, I mean, because Mike had a couple. Like, I remember, I was 18, 19. He brought in Mark Wheatley for Frankenstein Mobster. He brought in Jim Calafiore when Leave Megalopolis came out. And if you have a Kickstarter edition of Leave Megalopolis, we're actually in it.
Oh, rad.
There's like a panel in the city and says 4 Color Fantasies. It's got our logo because Mike was I think the only retailer that backed it.
Oh, wow.
And like pushed the hell out of it and got like 35 copies or something.
That's cool.
Which for an indie book is crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so Jim Calafiore was like, hey, man, like I live in Jersey. What if I just came down for a signing? And Mike's like, yes, please. And he had some other people in. And then I'm trying to think, we were doing like a book club kind of thing for a little bit. We brought Justin Jordan down because I'd talked to him at shows and found out he lived like 2 hours away.
Yeah.
And then just kind of steamrolled from there. But usually, I just try to bring in people that I liked or we wouldn't have to fly in, basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, me and Steve really pushed that. We pushed the Tuesday night videos.
Those are great too.
Tried to make Free Comic Book Day like a thing, like because we'd done it since the first year. I worked the very first Free Comic Book Day where there was like 9 books. But the way we used to do it was like, oh, you can take 3, like one of you pick 3, and then me and Steve were like, screw that, like let's just order high, push it like you have to be here, and you can grab whatever you want. Because we had a couple customers that would like that first year, they're like, oh yeah, just hold me one of everything. And we're like,
we got to make it an event day type of thing.
And we started having people like, we open at 10 on Saturdays. We had people waiting on the porch at like 7.
Oh wow.
And because we were like giving away prizes and just you have to be here to get it. And
it's huge. Like the one time, I've got to the 2 times I've attended Free Comic Book Day, what was so cool is that was a great like welcoming moment for me to Winchester. I just moved into
that's what you said. You
the city,
brand new.
Yeah, I was. I moved here in April 2 years ago, and I didn't know anybody. My best friend was already out of the country for his job for a little bit. I was just
Yeah.
on my own, and I was like, "Oh, it's free comic book day," and I would always help out my shop every single year.
Yeah.
I would just go in there and sell trades, and just like I was like a salesperson for him,
Yeah.
and he knew I knew my stuff, so he's like, "Please sell on free comic book day and
Yeah.
whatnot." And so I was like, "Man, I'm alone this year. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't have a shop." I was like, "Let me look one up," and I googled one, and Four Color popped up. I head over there, and I'm like, wow, this is a pretty cool looking spot. Like, just the attractiveness of it. The blue building,
Yeah.
the like
Like
hidden, like the
we give
parking
you
lot.
directions like look for the blue house. And they're like, which one? I'm like, you
You
will not
yeah,
miss it.
yeah, you
Like,
will see it. Like, and it was, walking in there, like for one, it's just an awesome shop. You could tell it's there's certain things about comic book shops where they're just like overstuffed. And when they're overstuffed, it's like a cool
yeah.
place,
Like Four Color's been my shop since I was a kid. So like that's what I want from a shop.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And it feels good when we bring in a creator like Kelly Williams came in this year and Tom Shiley, and they're both like, and Trad, they were all like, man, like this is what a comic shop should be.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like,
It's a win, And I mean, just the welcomingness of it. Like, I walked in there, I was welcomed right away. I was like, how cool. Like, they have people working here, like, for one, because that's kind of rare to shop too. Sometimes they might have one or two people.
yeah.
And, walking in, Justin Jordan was already there. And just seeing Justin was really rad for me because I got to interview him back in my early interviewing days,
Okay.
like in 2017. And so I like walked up and I was like, Justin, I know you don't remember me, but like I'm new to the town. It's just rad seeing you here. And, I got a book of, Luther Strode, he signed it.
Yeah.
Super cool. I think I got to talk to you. I don't know if you were there.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if that was the year I had COVID or not.
I think that was the year you were out.
Maybe.
It had to have been because I don't think we met. I met a couple other people there.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to meet Eric, the manager
I think
here.
I might have been sick that year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to a wedding like the week before
Mm.
and got positive. And I was like,
Yeah.
no. Like, I was
Yeah.
so
Like, yeah. Out of all weeks. And it was just like one of those things where I was like, I think I found my new like watering hole. Like,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
this is going to be a cool spot. And every experience I've had there, I mean, dude, hanging out with Tom Sicoli, hanging out with Trad Moore, like all that type of stuff was.
And that's like, we've gotten lucky. We've never brought in somebody that's like a jerk,
Yeah.
and that's something Mike has always pushed is like the community. Like that's what
Mhm.
Mike wanted from a shop, was a place where like, if you love comics, you can come there and talk about comics.
Yeah.
And everyone there loves comics. And like, that's how it's been since I was a kid. Like Mike would remember your name within 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And like as a kid, like I loved Spawn as a kid. That was my jam. Like
Yeah.
my first box at the shop, I got Spawn, Curse of Spawn, Preacher, and Slacker.
Oh, right. I haven't read Slacker before, but everything else.
Slacker's
yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was like the most 90s black and white indie grunge comic. Like the main character was like, everyone's a sellout and
Yeah.
like, just going on misadventures. And like you get older and you're like, oh, like he was a dick. Like,
Yeah.
but like it's one of my favorite comics. And but like my siblings don't care about Spawn, and they certainly didn't when I was 12. Like,
Yeah.
and so but I could go there, and even if Mike doesn't really like Spawn, he could talk to me about it. And, like
Mhm.
I could always talk to somebody about it and like just get excited about comics without being like nerd.
I think that's what was so different about Four Color too, was that like I asked people about a book or like I'm cashing out and people are already like commenting on what I'm purchasing, and not even on that fake kind of commenting where they're just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. This is such a cool book.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to like upsell or they're just trying to
And
promote it.
Yeah.
You guys like genuinely read everything that comes
Mike
through.
reads one of every single book we get in.
So
like
wild.
even if like we get one copy of it, Mike reads it. Because then what if somebody goes, hey, what's this book about? Mike can go, well, it's this. Or like My Little Pony. Mike's a 60-year-old guy. He doesn't really care about My Little Pony, but he can tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I don't read one of everything, but I read most things.
Mhm.
So we read every number one on Tuesday night. Because we pull everything out Tuesday night, get it in order, do the video to say, hey, here's what's coming out tomorrow. And then we grab our books for the week. So like you got to read every number one. Because
Nice.
then on Wednesday, if somebody goes, hey, what's this one about? You don't go, well, I heard it's this.
Yeah. People have been saying blah, blah. I read online.
Yeah.
Like,
Because and I've gone to other shops like that. And like, I would, my favorite shop in Delaware, the comic book shop. The couple who owned it, I love to death. And the guy passed away and his wife just sold it finally. But some of their employees, like I went there and they were nice people, but like I was looking at books and they're like, what? Somebody's like, what's this book about? I'm like, oh, I think it's this. And I'm like, that's not what it's about at all. What do you, but you got to be able to, I don't know. That's the perk of the shop is you get to read comics. Like I read all the number ones. I read everything I don't keep. And then I finally get to the stuff I keep.
Oh, nice.
Because that's something I learned from Mike was like, if you got your stack of books, put the stuff you really want to read on the bottom. Because otherwise you read it away and you go, well, I can
get to it eventually. Yeah.
So like, I don't know.
It's a good method, to be honest. Like,
yeah. And like, the stuff I don't keep, again, I might not be digging the new Batman stuff, but if somebody asks, you can help. And if you just genuinely love comics, why wouldn't you want to talk about comics?
Yeah.
And there are sometimes like you'd said when you're checking out, I feel like I'm coming off as fake, like, oh, this is really good. But it's like, no, I actually do enjoy this.
Yeah. Like I've researched and I know about it. Like and especially because like it's not, I mean, my old shop, I mean, I loved All Star to death and I always promote All Star back in El Paso, but Brad was such like a businessman. He's like, I'd ask him about something. He's like, dude, honestly, between you and me, and he's like, well, I mean, people know, but he's like, I don't know anything about comics. Like, I don't know anything about Daredevil. I know what sells. I know Frank Miller's good. I know Jim Lee's good. So I'm going to get that. And that's what makes me money. And he's like, I'm a drug dealer that doesn't do my drugs, So I just, it's business,
I mean, probably better for him financially. But I feel if you're in a shop, I feel like you got to be a fan. Like,
right. Yeah.
Because there's books I love that I'm the only one that buys a copy. And I wish I could sell 50 copies of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like Mike and I say it all the time, like, what's good doesn't always sell.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're reading everything and you're really enjoying something, what's better than talking about comics?
Yeah.
Like,
and you could genuinely recommend something to someone then by what they're getting and whatnot. So it's not a fake upsell. It's more of like, hey, you want another cool comic?
Yeah. And again, the community that Mike's pushed, like, sometimes you have to not sell a comic too. Like if somebody's like, I have a customer who's very picky and I love Sean to death, but like Sean will drop a book for Sean, if you're watching this, I apologize. Sean will drop a book for like a line, like somebody will say a line. He'd be like, nope, that's not what that character sounds like. I'm out. But from that, he'll go, hey, what do you think? And I'll be like, no, not for you.
Oh, interesting.
Or like, I'll go, hey, I read this. I think you'll really enjoy it. But you learn what people are into. And people surprise you all the time, and you're always going to get new people. But I don't know. It feels good not to sell something, but like to get somebody into something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm sure at shows, if you're like, hey, like you're wearing a cool punk shirt, you might like this comic. And if they really dig it, you're like, hell yeah.
Like, yeah, totally. If I see anyone with punk attire, I'm just like, I have a punk anthology, check this out, or Teenage Babylon, or it's also reading the room. Like, the Shadow anthology is like the emo response of like the punk anthology. Yeah. So depending who I'm talking to, I'm like, I think you'll like this one a little bit more.
Yeah, you might not pitch it to the guy in the Slayer shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, I love indie stuff. I've always leaned more that way because when I got into comics, I was like, superheroes, dumb. Because I liked Spawn.
That makes sense. Yeah. Like that. Yeah.
And like I loved Vertigo in the 90s, but I'd be like, Superman, no thanks.
Interesting.
But so like I can push the indie stuff maybe a little better, but like, man, I love superheroes now. Like if something's good, it's good. And I want to tell people about it. Like I got to read All In. They sent us a PDF.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome. It's everything I love about superheroes.
Sick. Yeah. I saw that post and I was like, actually, that's a really convincing line for me to check it out now.
And maybe if I can sell one extra book, if somebody's like, I've been out of it, I'm like, just give it a shot.
Yeah.
Or like we'll do like a money back guarantee on books too.
Oh wow.
Like if it's a number one and people are like, I'm like, pick it up. You don't like it, bring it back.
Oh,
what
that's
are we
cool.
Like we spend $250 on a book. Like you don't like it, we lose $250. Okay,
that's not bad.
I don't want to keep losing $250.
Yeah, but it's like one thing, you're considerate for your customers and your audience, and therefore they kind of know they could trust you guys too.
Yeah, and again, like
you feel that confident in the material.
Yeah, exactly. And I did a Zoom thing the other day with Snyder and Williamson about All In and all that. And one of the retailers was like, well, can't you just tell us the ending now? Like, it'll help us sell it. And like, we should be business people first. And I was like, actually, you should be a fan as well.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to enjoy it because otherwise, like, none of us are making money. So,
yeah, be there.
I don't know. I love comics and I like talking to people about comics and I like getting people into comics. And there's nothing better than like, you sell somebody a book and they come back next week like, I love that book. Put it on my list. Like, that's the best feeling in the world. Or somebody will be like, hey, I'm not really into comics. Like, what should I read? And it's like, well, what shows do you like? What books do you like?
And then navigate from there, interest and everything.
Because, you might be like, well, I don't know, try Superman. And they'll be like, I hate superheroes, but I love horror. And it's like, oh, well, if you like horror, there's this. Like, there's a comic for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's where, and I've always kind of said this, I feel like indie comics are like for the people that truly do love comics, because
Yeah.
they're not restrictive to just, Marvel and DC. They're wanting to see the art form in every variation it could possibly come
because
in.
you're not really following character.
Yeah.
Like I love the Flash, but I'm not going to read every Flash comic.
Mhm.
But like if you like a genre or you like a writer or even, I mean, there might be like a 4-issue mini that was never, that's it,
Yeah.
and you just really love that.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
So
And I mean, and what kind of really attracted me about Four Color too was like right away, I was like, hey, I'm going to be putting out some books. I'm going to have something coming out. Would you guys ever carry it in your shop? And immediately you were very open to be like, oh, bring over a copy or email me of a digital and we'll work something out. And you were so flexible on the ways we could work out something to get it into your shop.
Why not?
And I mean, that's what's cool. I don't see a lot of comic book shops do the same model as you guys in that sense too, which blows me away.
I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. Like Mike has always pushed the indie stuff.
Oh, cool.
Because I mean, again, I was 11, 12, 13, and I could get John Homicidal Maniac right off the shelf, or Milk and Cheese, or I don't know, and like a weird Vertigo book, or Mystery Men.
Yeah, I would say Fleeing Carrot, Mystery Men, all that type of stuff.
Something like that. Yeah. Like you could, because as a kid that didn't like DC and Marvel, I didn't even look at that section.
Interesting.
Like, but I could go and go, well, this looks weird as hell.
Yeah.
And I want that to continue. Like your books, Hobbs Holics stuff. Like Hobbs came in and he was coming in a couple weeks and I don't even think he'd signed up yet for a box. And he was like, hey, like I do a comic. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, well, I don't know, you might, it's all ages, dark fantasy. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Bring it. Yeah.
And we sell out of it all the time.
Oh, it's so cool.
Because it's something different. Like,
it stands out. Like all the indie section stands out.
Why not have variety? Because again, like maybe somebody's just passing through town and they might have their shop back home and they're like, well, I've got all the Marvel and DC stuff. I've already bought that. But hey, what's Apollo City Comics? What's this? Like, why not have something? Have some variety.
That's so cool. And it's cool hearing that it didn't just start with you, that Mike was so open to that. And kind of like brought you into that culture and you're growing that as well.
Mike just loves comics. Like Mike loves superheroes. He loves Batman and Iron Man and Green Lantern. And like if you go to his house, he's got statues of like
dude, they're so
characters.
Cool, man. All his Sandman statues.
But Mike also loves like Maya the Psychic Girl and Omaha the Cat Dancer and Lil Abner or Bone. Like like Mike just loves comics.
That's great.
The community that he's created.
And I think that's such a good like connecting point is that, everything that we've always done and CWS is about is like it's community. We're more than just a printer. We're trying to like really bring community into it because we see how the indie community goes, the comic book community goes. And I feel like as long as you give that safe space, kind of like punk shows, you know what I mean? Exactly. Like you need a safe space to go in and like love what you love. And like I think both of us growing up on punk rock, we had that same feeling with going out and seeing concerts, and it's like, reflective here.
Two of the best pieces of advice that I've ever used in the comic shop is one Mike taught me when I was 16. He said, every comic is somebody's favorite. Like you don't want to go, like, cause he told a story that like probably the 90s, a guy came in and was kind of walking around. Mike's like, you need anything? No. Okay. Like, and then the guy's looking and finally he's like, hey, like this, I don't know, it's kind of embarrassing. Do you have Rom the Space Knight? Mike's like, yeah, man, it's right here. Like, and the guy bought a bunch and was like, hey, thanks. Like every other shop I go to, people make fun of me for liking it.
And my gosh.
Like, why would I make fun of you? Like you like it, And he's like, every comic is somebody's favorite. Because again, I loved Spawn.
Same. People pick on me for loving Spawn too, but like, I love Spawn. Like, it's so cool. I was
16, like at the time, and like Spawn was heading towards 100, but like wasn't the most popular. It wasn't 1992 anymore. Yeah. And so like I loved it, but like some people are like, really, Spawn?
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, I get that.
But it's like, hey man, I love it. And then the other piece of advice is I got from wrestling. Like Trent Acid, who's the main guy that trained me, the first time I met him, he was talking at the seminar and he's like, hey, like when you walk into a locker room, everybody there loves wrestling. You all have at least that in common. You might disagree on everything else, but you've at least got that. And that's how I treat the comic shop. Is like, if you're in the shop, you're probably like comics. Yeah. Or you're looking for somebody who enjoys comics. Like you don't have to come in and be like, well, I don't like Spider-Man, so you probably won't like me. Like, well, okay, what do you like? Like you like comics. So to me, that's the most important thing. Like, don't be a jerk, just enjoy comics.
Just enjoy the art form in general. And I think that's what, with Apollo is what we've tried to do, and working with CWS, you just see like the great variety of like people not being fearless about their creations too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't care like if it artwork, can vary from skill sets,
Oh
like
yeah,
I'm
for
not a
sure.
great artist. That's why we do a live drawing show. But you see from like the range from like, entry art to like where it's getting close to like where it's going towards that, DC Marvel type of
Yeah.
level of like, skill sets. And I love being able to see creators be like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna grow. I'm gonna make this
Yeah.
book and it's gonna be practice. I'm gonna put it out there.
Mhm.
And you can't make fun of that. Like you
No.
can't make fun of someone having like the courage to go out there and put out art
And
of any level.
yeah, just they tried.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
how many
honestly.
people don't? How many people go, well, I could do that. Well, I thought about that. Well, I never did that. Like, I love a comic that might look terrible, but like that person put all of their soul into
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
I love it. And like you're going to SPX this weekend.
Yeah.
Like I love SPX. That was my first show.
I'm so
And,
excited.
like,
It's my first time there.
you'll see like somebody from Europe right beside Jaime Hernandez, right beside somebody doing their very first zine. Like,
Yeah.
and I love it because all three of them love comics the exact same.
Yeah, honestly. And I mean, that's what's so fun about like, I guess the creation process. It kind of, gives you a community, it gives you that safe space, it gives you the encouragement to check out different things that's outside of your range and whatnot, Like I grew up on the big two. I grew up on Marvel and DC, and I was always just like, well, this is what I love. Like, what else could these other comics offer me?
Yeah. Exactly.
And once you find the one or two that you're just like, oh, like Flex Metallo had nothing to do with any of this, but it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to find the other weird stuff.
You find that thing that unlocks it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I get it. Like I didn't start reading Love and Rockets till just a couple years ago, and I finally read it. I was like, what the hell have I been doing? Why did I not read this for the last 20 years?
Love and Rockets is one of those books that I keep on restarting Maggie the Mechanic. Because I'm like, I need to get through this. I don't know why I stopped at the same spot.
Off really like not what you'd expect. Because when I finally read it, I was like, "There's dinosaurs, and literal rockets." Like I thought this was like about punk kids. And
same,
like that. And then you get through it, and you're like, "Oh, okay." They worked their way through that, and now it's just this beautiful slice of life story and with relationships. And there's still weird stuff that pops
kind
up.
of like Strangers in Paradise. Like that took me an issue or two, but once I got the flow of it, I was like, oh, I'm obsessed now.
Like same thing. Like when I was a teenager, like that's a book that like Mike always pushed. Pretty much everyone at the shop was like, why aren't you reading this? What are you doing? Like, and I'd seen Terry Moore and Wizard and Strangers in Paradise. I'm like, well, I like the art, but like it's just people talking. Why would I read that? Like there's not a demon to be found. And then I finally read like the first two trades and I was like, okay, yeah, I want to know every single thing that's going on here. And now I read anything that Terry Moore does.
It's crazy how like some people will give like a TV show and be like, oh, the first season's really, really rough. But once you get past the first season, like season 2 and 3 is great.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just, and I get that happens with shows and everything. And we all have a recommendation like that. But like with comics, people just give up so quickly sometimes.
Yeah.
When I'm like, you just sat there for like 10 hours watching a bad season when you could have spent like 15 minutes.
They'll be like, I don't really like this show, but I watch it every single night.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you could take like an hour.
Yeah.
And read a trade and just be hooked.
Yeah, honestly.
So people are weird.
So having such a big love for comics and working in the retail aspect, or did you ever have like ambitions or a desire to like make comics yourself too?
Oh yeah. I wanted to be an inker when I was younger. And God, I'll find it and show it to you sometime. This guy named Burr who used to work at the shop, who was a teacher in town, and my friend Matt Spicer, who's done covers for the charity now. We did an ash can for a book, when I was 19, because I gave it out at my second SPX, I think. Like Matt penciled it, I inked it. I was a terrible inker. Like I showed Mike the first, I'm like, what do you think? Mike's like, well, you should probably have thinner lines in the background and so that it looks like it's farther away. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, what do you know?
And it was kind of like a Twilight of the superheroes kind of thing. And I loved it. I loved it. It's one of those, like the story is always in the back of my head. Like, I just want to know how it ends. And we were going to do a horror book. And we did a little ash can that we printed it. Not Staples, somewhere else, Kinko's or something. And just gave them out at SPX.
Oh, nice.
And like, I was like, yeah, we're going to make comics. And then it just never went anywhere. And then I wrote a 3-page backup and spread from Justin.
Oh, Jordan, cool.
Because he was taking, submissions. And I was like, he came down for that book club thing. I was like, hey, you still taking submissions?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, man, sure. Just hit me up. So like me and my friend Alyssa did one. And that's about it. Like I wrote a couple things and I I enjoy being done with writing. I hate writing.
Oh, okay,
So,
yeah.
like,
And that's the key thing. If you don't love the process of any of it,
yeah,
the end result isn't going to be what
it's
you
not.
expected.
Yeah, and so like Joe Lansdale says, you got to put your ass in the chair, right? And I hate putting my ass in the chair.
Yeah.
So like that's about the extent of my comic time. I still would like to do a zine at the shop sometime, I think.
That'd be cool. That'd be super cool.
But that's down the line. But overall, I just like talking about comics. It's like wrestling and music. Like I like doing it. I don't need to be all the way in it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's, until a certain point where like you love something so much, and then if it starts to feel like draining, like where like a regular day job feels draining,
Yeah.
like, and not like a fun day job, like what you do at Four Color, what I do here, like this is like stuff that keeps us energized and we're excited to do it. But and even when I go to the drawing board or whatever, like I'm hyped to do it no matter how intimidating it is. But like if I didn't like that process, I'm there's no way you could crank it out, and you're just going to be frustrated at the end. You're going to be frustrated with the end result, and you're just not going to have. It's not the right amount of passion for what these things require.
And you get like similar to wrestling. I just didn't have the drive for it. I was like, man, I love the Flash. I have no desire to write the Flash anymore.
Yeah,
and
well, I don't have a superhero idea in me, like at all. I have like 8 books in development right now, and not a single one of them are. I mean, Weed Wizard and Bong Boy. That's probably the closest superhero I get at that point,
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's like I love it, but it's like I don't have that story in me in that sense. Yeah.
Which is great, like leave that for somebody else. Do what you love.
Because then I could go to those things and you don't strip away all of your escapes. You still need to have something you could go to and be like, I need to escape this universe. Like I need to escape my projects and my brain. And luckily, like when I read like Justice League or Batman or whatever, it's like that's so far off from what I really want to do. I don't really analyze those books when I read them.
You just enjoy them.
I just enjoy them. Yeah. There's some books I will like, I'm gonna like crack this down in page, a Morrison book or anything like that. But like it's not everything, because then you're gonna cripple yourself.
And not everything needs to be that. I can't like you. Like there's some books that I'm like, man, I just want to analyze this page by page. I want to look at every single dot of this panel.
Yeah.
And then other ones are just like, sometimes you just need to be, you need a cool story you want to read and enjoy.
Like, honestly.
God forbid you enjoy something.
And I think that becomes like, again, in the comic book community too, what's great about Four Color and the environment you guys have created is that it's not one of those like know-it-all areas where you don't, just because you're just like, oh, I don't remember this creator or this hero, or I got this mixed up, no one's like in your face about it. It's more like, oh,
with the Tuesday night videos, like the first couple we did, we would do like, we'd have to do multiple takes because we'd be like, well, I screwed that up, whatever. And then after a while, like Steve and I are like, everyone knows we're dumb. Like they've been in here, they know we're goofy and like we're human and we screw up, so like one take, that's it. You mess up, forget it, keep going. Like, the only time, like,
because then you'll be redoing it over and over and over.
And it's never going to be right. So like the only time we do multiple takes is if like, man, I can't, my brain's not working, so I'll just be like, I'll just cuss or something, like, well, I know I can't use that on the video, so got to start over. Like, but it's, I don't know, there's nothing worse than like being talked down to, anything. So like everyone's got to start somewhere. Like not everyone, like Mike's forgotten more about comics than I'll ever know. But he's never talked down to anybody because of that. Like not everyone knows, like why not teach them? Like,
and honestly, there's like so much out there. How could you know?
Exactly.
Like Max Flowers, he's the co-host in Spilled Ink. He's not really a superhero person at all. So when you talk about superheroes or we do that type of stuff, it's very new to him. So it's kind of exciting when we draw some characters on the show that people choose.
Not be familiar with.
He's like, I've never even attempted to draw this type of person or anatomy before. But he's into all the cool, like indie, like underground zine stuff and like Mary Michael Moorcock and things like that. Like we're just he's always introducing me to stuff like Silver Sprocket, like that publisher and everything, and I'm like, dude,
that's what's great about comics is like there's everything, there's something out there for everybody and they're all valid. Like you and I have talked about Cartoons Kayfabe before. Like, one of the things I loved about that show is that like, hey man, Youngblood is just as valid as Daniel Clowes.
Yes.
And it's all comics. Like manga and American style and European style. Comics are comics are comics.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think that's what was so great about kayfabe and that show in general was like it was so focused on like we want to encourage you to read, we want to
Yeah,
give you some stuff to discover, we want to give you some people to look into, and that's like the most
yeah,
enriching thing you could provide, fans and creators is
yeah,
like here's material, like go check it
yeah.
out, like
And
study.
they would, if they didn't like something, they'd be like, "Oh God, I hate this. Here, let me tell you why I don't
Yeah.
like it." Anyway, moving on.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there
Here's
was,
my personal opinion, but
yeah,
we're covering it because we enjoy this as
or
a
even
whole,
like they would do, because when they were putting out like a video a day, like
Hmm.
they'd be like 10, 15 minutes, and there might be like they'd focus on a single issue and be like, "Man, I did not like
Yeah.
this, but here's what I did like about it."
Yeah. Mhm.
And I remember talking to Ed that first year at Kayfabe, and I was like, "Dude, I love how positive the show
Yeah.
is." And he was like, "Well, if I could easily," because I was like, you don't do a half-hour episode that's like, "Let me tell you why Captain Marvel's short hair is stupid," and he's like, "We could easily do that, and we'd have 1 million subscribers."
Mhm.
But that's not what it's about.
That's what Apollo did from the beginning. When I was first podcasting, it was all about just to study the craft. And I'd bring, I had friends or co-hosts that we would just like, all right, this is a book we love. And, one of us hadn't read it yet, probably, or
Yeah,
neither one of us. And you go through it, but it's like, we're not bashing on anything. We're just like enjoying a book, like as if if we're sitting down here reading a
yeah,
book together. Like
and
we're going to make fun of some stuff.
yeah,
We're going to love some stuff.
you can't enjoy everything.
Yeah.
Like, but what it's so much more fun to talk about what you like than what you don't like. Like you said,
Yeah.
with your friends, you'd be like, "Man, ugh, this."
Yeah.
Like, and like at the shop, we do that, but like, I don't do it with customers. Like you said earlier, read the room.
Yeah.
Like if
Mhm.
we're all joking around, laughing, that's whatever. But like, I remember one time there's a kid who comes in still with his dad, and like I love them to death because they just love comics. And we were talking about some new character. I was like, well, this one's all right. No, not like this other one. And he was like, man, I love that character. And I was like,
the one
man,
time,
I know,
you make
I was like, man, I'm not 12. I'm sorry. Like, if I was 12, I'd love this thing, but I don't. And so I try to keep that to a minimum
Mhm.
because again, it's not fun. Like, why would you want to go to a shop where somebody's just like, you're there for comics and somebody's like, comics suck. Comics
Yeah.
suck. Like,
I've been in shops like that
yeah,
too.
sure, we all
And
have.
it's just like, this is like what you do. How
Yeah.
do you hate all
Like,
this?
would
Like,
you want to go to a restaurant and somebody's like, oh, we have this burger, it sucks. Anyway, like,
yeah, like that's a
no.
bad choice. Yeah. Fries, not a fan, but you're
Yeah,
just
like,
like, dude,
well, I'm
what?
not going to go back to this
Yeah.
restaurant. Like, I would rather talk to people. Like, I love if a kid comes in and they're like, I love Spider-Man, and they want to talk to me. I'm like, hell yes. Tell me why you love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then, hell, as a kid or an adult, I don't care. Like, talk to me about what you love, and I'm in.
Because they might point out something like if there's a character or there's like something you just don't understand or you've never been into, but they're like, you need to read this one story from this character and you might dig it.
Yeah,
And then sometimes that'll just open the floodgates for you. You know what I mean?
100%.
There's I mean, there's so many, like I wasn't a big Fantastic Four fan. And
Yeah.
then I read 1, 2, 3, 4 by Morrison and I was like, oh, I get it. Like this,
Yeah.
this makes sense. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I always liked Simonson Thor, and I was like, well, I'm just a Simonson Thor.
Mhm.
Like that's all you need. And then when the legacy stuff from Marvel was coming out, I was reading those as if they were number ones, and I read a Jane Foster Thor, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool.
This is pretty cool,
Maybe
yeah.
I'll check it out. And then we had a big consignment through, and I got all the Jason Aaron stuff, and I was like, well, I'll try it. And now it's one of my favorite runs. And now
Yeah.
I'm like,
So
I
good.
think I just love Thor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Like,
kind of what it turns into after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Ryan, he runs a show. It was called Across the Bifrost, and he got me to read all of Jason Aaron's Thor. And I just guessed it on one episode. Like, oh, okay, I'll check out this,
Yeah.
thing. And then I became a fan and I bought all the trades. And now
Yeah.
I'm just like, then we started doing other Thor things. I was like, oh, like you're pointing out things that I like am actually getting into. Like I just had to open myself up.
Exactly.
And just because you read one bad series or one bad issue
Yep.
doesn't mean like you just dismiss
And
everything
there
from
are
it.
characters I don't like, and I've tried them and tried them. I'm like, no, but maybe one day there'll be somebody will do a different take on it, and I'll go, hey, great. Like, I don't really care about Batwoman. I think she looks cool. When she first showed up, I was like, hey, this looks awesome. And then I was like, not for me.
Yeah.
And so every time she does, I'm like, maybe this is the time. No, not yet.
I think
But
that
I'm holding out hope.
we talked about J.H. Williams recently, and
Yeah.
like I'm a huge J.H. Williams fan, and you're like, oh, I'm not like that
He's
crazy
all
of a fan.
right. He's
And I was
super
like,
talented.
blew my mind. You know what I mean? And that's just two sides of the coin right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What,
Like,
Kirby. I wasn't into Kirby for the longest time.
oh, same. Yeah. It
Uh,
took me a while to understand him. And once I became a creator and like was studying it, that's when I was like, oh, I get Kirby now. Like,
Yeah.
but it took me to step into that mindset in those shoes of like analyzing and breaking down and figuring out
Yeah.
and realizing the relevance of it all.
Yeah.
You know?
That's like, I was always like, Kirby, not my thing. But then I was like, well, I like Commandy. And then it was like, so I was reading Command and I'm like, why do I like this? Well, I like it because of this reason. Well, let me try that Fantastic. Oh, I do like Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Well, maybe I'll try this. Or the Jason Aaron Thor stuff. At the end of the Legacy issue, Mangog shows up. And I'd never seen Mangog.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this?
Same.
thing?
Yeah.
I was like, is this new? And my friend Tom's like, no, that thing's from like the 60s. It's a Kirby thing. And I was like, well, and then we had this consignment come through, and I was like, well, this is the first appearance of Mangog. We'll get that. And now I collect old Thors.
Oh, there you No, this is where I'm at. Yeah.
But again, like it's you just got to find the right thing. And there's always going to be something you just don't like. But like even things I don't like, I can go, well, it's not for me, but I can see why other people enjoy it.
Steps. Freaking cat, man.
But again, that's the thing. Like everyone's into something different.
There we go. Yeah, and I think that's the same thing with like indie books. All of this applies to like indie comics no matter what, because I feel like people are so hesitant and like just unsure about independent books. They're like, maybe the quality isn't up there with, Marvel and DC, or maybe in any terms of storytelling, art, writing, and people just right away like are just not so confident spending the money on independent books.
I think a lot of people think there's like this invisible hurdle that like, well, if you're working for Marvel or DC, like you've proved yourself.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, kinda like, but also like those people, the same people working on the indie book had to still jump a hurdle to start it. Like, there's still different levels of quality across the board. Like I'm sure you've heard people talk about it, but like if there's a Marvel book, they're like, well, how'd this guy get the job? Whatever. or even worse, how'd this girl get the job? But it's like, that still applies to the indie stuff. Like and again, it's all personal taste.
It really is. That's what it comes down to, because there's
got to get people over that hurdle of like, yes, this is not a character you've heard of.
Stop burning your food.
But I always compare it to movies. Like, do you just watch one type of movie? Like, you probably try different things. And so you just got to unlock that thing in their person's mind to just give things a shot.
You have to kind of like trick them in a sense, you have to give them like, it's like a kid, you have to swap out the food. So it's like, get them like, oh, you do like your veggies, like, and this is what it is. Like,
you just gotta, I don't know. Everyone's got something, like, I mean, I love Strangers in Paradise, but like, I know Jim Rugg and Ed on K-Fair, they're like, it's not Love and Rockets. I'm like, well, it's not, but it's different. And I'm just like, every time they would be like, well, like reading a Wizard of the Big Strangers in Paradise, and I'd be like, God, guys, just read it. I know, like,
exactly, yes.
What are you doing?
And I mean, even Terry Moore's like artistic style and his approach, it was like, it's really refreshing. It's really different, like the way he does curves and he adds like layers and like, I find it to be very realistic art in the sense of like how he does like anatomy. And it's a cool thing to study and actually try to interpret yourself,
Yeah, exactly. Like all of his people look like real people.
Yeah.
But there's still that cartooniness. It's not just like photo reference. But you're like, oh, that looks like a real person you've seen on the street.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I appreciated, I think, first about that, before I really understood like the funness of what was going on in that universe, And
he could still turn that cartooniness up a little bit. Which I love. Like if somebody like freaked out or something, like the emotion on their face would be like
exaggerated and everything. Yeah.
Or like catch you smashing an alarm clock.
Yeah.
Like, I love it, And
even their names, like right off the bat, like they're just like ridiculous and they're fun and they're very unique,
Yeah.
And I think again, it starts from like, when you think about indie comics, it's not even just, there's different layers of like indie, there's like the underground, like zine, where like almost nobody really knows about you yet, but you're doing these small festivals,
or you're leaving copies for free.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Kind of like I feel like I'm leaving that area and going into more of like I'm like a small publisher. People know about us.
Yeah.
We're still on the indie spectrum because we're not like, we're not rich. We're not doing, it's all out of my, literally out of my studio, as you could see. And then you start moving up to being like, oh, you're indie, but you're like Jim Mahfood now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're still like not doing big two stuff and you're not doing like IDW. You might have a cool cover and like you have books out, but you're respected across the spectrum. And then you start going into like indie as in like probably like Mad Cave and those type of publishers, Aftershock and whatnot. And after that's kind of like, okay, now you're approaching IDW, which are not necessarily indie. They're like just bigger publishers, but like, not as big as Marvel and DC.
You're still not the big two, but it's like you're still up there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like Image they're still an indie company.
Yeah.
Like
in all technicality, yeah.
Like, I know, like Justin said, when like they did Luther Strode, like they had to have like a full issue done before they even, and maybe 3.
Yeah, I feel
before
like
they
you have to have
even
like a whole
published
chunk.
one,
Yeah.
because like they don't want to go back to the 90s thing where like you buy one issue and then 2 years later you get the next one.
And which is crazy is that like, you know, it still happens with Marvel. It still happens with
Yeah,
DC.
yeah.
Like, you know, I think what the current JSA
It
series.
is incredibly late. Uh,
Yeah.
and we had someone in one time before that came out, and we got talking about Jeff Johns, and they were like, I don't want to tell names because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but they were like, "Oh, you excited for JSA?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it." He's like, "Gonna be late."
Honestly, yeah.
And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I know the artist." He's like, "They don't even have the first issue script yet." And I was like, "Oh no!"
Whoa, yeah.
And like,
scary.
I love that book because I love the JSA.
Yeah.
But like from the get go, I was like,
and what's the artist name? He did Batman with Tom King.
Mikhail Hanini.
Yeah, there you
I think
go.
that's how it's pronounced. That's how the person told me it's pronounced.
Phenomenal stuff too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he was like, "Gonna be late," and I was like, "Okay." But
And I
again,
mean-
like you said, that still happens at the big 2.
Yeah.
So, or I mean, Batman Gargoyle of Gotham it's
Oh,
beautiful,
beautiful.
Raphael Grompa, but like, I've got customers like, "Is that canceled?" I'm like, "No, it's just pushed back." Like,
It's just they're on issue 3. That's supposed
issue
to
3
be-
we're waiting on.
Yeah.
And like, if you look on the website, it says canceled on the website. But we did that Zoom the other day and it had nothing to do with that. And somebody's like, "When's that coming out? Is it canceled?" And they were like, "It's just been pushed back."
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's great.
Yeah. Or heck, I mean, back in the day, Kevin Smith's Green Arrow, his Daredevil was super late.
So late, yeah.
And so DC at the time was like, "Hey, you need to give us 12 issues, 12 scripts before we even solicit it." And that book was on time. So,
Wow.
And I wish with someone like this, like the boutique kind of stuff, like Gargoyle of Gotham and things like that, they would let people do that.
I feel like some of these special creators they give that like leeway with too in general. You know, like, you know, Raphael Grandpa is like a very exquisite creator and he doesn't do a house style.
Yeah.
He has very much his own.
The book's gonna sell.
Yeah.
Give him a couple, give him a little wiggle room to get
Yeah.
that. And who knows? I mean, you and I might just be talking about our ass. Maybe there's something else going on.
That is very true.
Or like when Trad was on All New Ghost Rider, like that book was a little late. And I remember talking to him at Baltimore and I was like, "Hey, how's that going?" He's like, "I can realistically do 6 issues a year."
Oh wow.
Like he's like, "I cannot do a monthly book." And he was getting late. And so he was working 11 by 17 and his Ghost Rider pages, if you ever see them, are smaller because he was like, "Well, I'll do a smaller page and it won't take me as long."
Whoa.
And then he did even more detail.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because he's just a psycho.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Like
but like, you know, everyone's different. But like you said with the indie stuff, like you can still I give indie books a little more leeway because a lot of those people like you or your people in your stable or whatever, this isn't the full-time job.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
Like you got to do it when you can. So I give them a little more leeway. Some people might not. I don't know.
Well, that's like I think the big thing with indie books is that, you know, it's as a creator, you have to be aware of like, okay, I'm promoting my issue 1 or I'm promoting this story. What is the best format for me to do this so that if I make fans that they'll be kept up with everything.
Yeah.
And if I'm not just doing, you know, if you do an issue a year and you sell that one issue for a whole year and then you're doing issue 2 the following year, like you have to keep upkeep with your fans. You have to keep a certain like sort of balance between like, okay, stuff's in production or how far ahead do you get? Do you get an issue or 2 ahead?
I mean, that's like Image will do the hiatus a lot, like on books, and it's great for the creators because it's like, hey, it's going to keep them from getting burned out.
Yeah,
but that hiatus will kill a book at a shop.
Yeah, because then they'll come back. I mean, Saga is probably one of the very few that doesn't. You know,
because it took 4 years off and came back and then took another 6 months off,
Mm.
and so for us, it's going down a little. It's still there,
Yeah,
but there's a couple people that are like, I'll just get it and trade.
Yeah,
and there was couple other Image books. They'll take their hiatus and they come back and like they're great books. And I'm like, "Hey guys, this book's great, remember?" And they're like, "It's been a while."
Yeah.
And if they're not subscribed to it and they see it on the shelf, they'll be like, "Did I get the last one? When's the last time this came out?" Forget it.
And I mean, it's one of the, like, even with indie creators, you know, as long as you're keeping something coming out steadily of some sort, you're going to keep people's attention.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be the same title.
James Tynan's perfect for that.
Oh, yeah.
Like some of his books will take the hiatus, and I was worried that they wouldn't come back strong. And they do, because it's like, well, Deviant's not coming out, but Something's Killing the Children's coming out.
Yeah.
Well, that's not coming out, but Wind is coming out.
Right.
So he's great at promoting himself and letting people
I think
know.
that's what we try to do with Apollo too, is that, you know, we have things that are being released, but then we have such a good flavor between our books that when there is a gap, it's like, oh no, you still have like a good amount of stuff from
Yeah.
anthologies. You have this coming out. You have now we're gonna have like web comics coming out next
Oh,
year.
awesome.
Like we're trying to do enough to keep people fed with
Yeah.
material. And if you figure out how to do that, because as an indie creator, what we're doing is a business.
Yeah.
And although all of us just would rather write and draw and then do that stuff, the business side of things, you have to prepare like, okay, you guys are wrapping up issue 1. Well, how far into issue 2 are you going to get before we
Yeah.
start promoting this type of stuff?
And I mean, you'll see it with a lot of creators, like Eric Powell put all his stuff out through Dark Horse,
Mhm.
and then he left and did Albatross Exploding Funny Books.
Yeah.
And then he went back to Dark Horse because he was like, I don't want to do the business side of it.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other thing. It's like, all right, well, now I've drawn this 22-page comic or more.
Mhm.
Now I have to sell it. Now I got to ship it. Now I got to do this.
Market it, PR, interviews,
Yeah.
all of that.
So it's just like a lot of people would like, and it's awesome because I mean, I think creators are smart to be like, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to put 100% of my focus on this.
Mhm.
And it's got to be tough for you indie guys to I mean, like Hobbs. Hobbs has a full-time job.
Yeah.
He's got a wife and kid, and he does a comic.
Yeah.
But then he's another psycho who's always working on something. Like he's always posting like
wood stuff and everything.
making nutcrackers, or like he made that Skeeter pole puppet.
That's right.
That was a
Yeah.
giveaway at the shop, and I just love creative people. Like just
Yeah.
people that can't sit still.
And it's one of those things, like even as an indie creator, you have to have that passion, that drive, because doing your day job. I was working at a grocery store full time, and I have to come back and like manage other books, and then be like, oh, I still got to write my own books. Like, how am I going to figure this out? Like, but it's more of like, okay, how bad do you want this? And without driving yourself crazy, without driving yourself into burnout.
Yeah, you got to be realistic too.
And like that patience and understanding of like, okay, this is going to take me a while. I was hyping up Teenage Babylon before I even had an artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you do things right, you could kind of get that attention, and people will be excited and continuously excited.
Yeah.
But then, also you kind of show the worth behind the amount of a book. Indie books, I think all of us sell way more, like price wise, they're more expensive than like a Marvel or DC book.
Yeah.
But that comes down to, again, business. We're paying artists, we're paying, the company isn't paying for an artist. We probably are out of our pocket.
And you always got to have, it's good and bad. It's always what's next.
Yeah.
Because we all know the one guy or people that you see at shows who have had the same book at every show for the last decade, and they're hawking it, and then like grabbing people out of the aisle to be like, what's the name of this? And it's like, man, that's the same book you had 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Like, which is cool. Like maybe you're doing well off of selling that book, but like, I want to know what's next.
Yeah.
Like,
or be part of an anthology. I think those are great ways to like add something to your table in a sense, or your arsenal.
Yeah, it's something.
It gives, and plus it opens up to be like, oh, cool. Like you're a part of this book. Actually, a bunch of my friends are in this book, and then you're helping people discover other creators, other books coming out. I think that's why with our anthologies we try to put previews, like little snippets of, like Soul Catchers is in the Shadow anthology, and we're releasing that at the end of this year, and that's going to be really cool because people already have a snippet of it, so it's already familiar. It's like undercover marketing, kind of like we've been promoting it since the beginning of the year in all technicality.
For sure, I love it.
Ready to make a splash at your next convention? Comix Wellspring has got you covered with 3 amazing deals. Spend $150 on books and snag 30% off retractable banners and tablecloths, or 20% off flyers and posters. Also, if you buy 1 banner, you could grab a second for 35% off. And for a complete booth makeover, buy 1 tablecloth, get another for 35% off. These eye-catching displays will make your booth pop and your comic shine. Click the link on the screen now and elevate your convention game. And now, back to the conversation with Erik Jones. Yeah, comics are insane and wild. And, I think everything you guys do at 4Color and how supportive you guys are with just not only understanding like what it is to run a shop, but you understand the industry of comics as a whole, from mainstream to independent and like everything kind of in between. And it really like gels your shop into a great community base, and, bringing artists over there to like do signings and doing the raffles and how you do it.
That's like with the signings, like, the signings and the charity. Like, I love going to shows. I love talking to creators. Like you and I, like, this is awesome. Like, I love talking to you about what you love. Like I said earlier. And I love, like, if I love a comic, I want to tell that person why I love that comic.
Yeah.
And then I collect sketches and art at shows, and not everyone can go to a show.
Mhm.
You know, there is a price prohibition to some people.
Yeah, no,
Like,
they're expensive, and driving out somewhere and
yeah, like
covering
not
food and gas and like all
exactly.
that.
Not everyone can go like, well, it's $40 to get into Baltimore, and then I'm gonna have to get lunch, and I gotta drive there, and
Mhm.
if I want to get a signature, it's gonna be this much.
Mhm.
And you know, there's a base to it. Like even last year, just want to meet Glenn Fabry. Like he one of my white whales. Like he did the covers for Preacher. I've got his art tattooed to my arm, and he canceled a show I was at, and then I was like, well, he's at Emerald City, or maybe it was Rose City. He was at one of them. I was like, well, I could fly out there, but it's like, okay, well, it's 500 for the flight,
Yep.
and then I got to get a hotel, and then I got to get in. It's like, man, I'm spending like $600 or $700 before you can get in the door. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a lot of money. And there are some people that you got to, and I have to penny pinch, you know.
Yeah.
So you got to go like, well, I might not be able to go, but if I can bring them into the shop, you know,
To win.
you might, you know, maybe not everyone can go and meet this person, but oh man, I can go to 4Color.
Well, I mean, dude, Trad Moore was one of those like
That was
exquisite like meetings, and I know he doesn't do a lot of signings. He doesn't do a lot of appearances.
And I got lucky with that, like because I met Trad when Luther Strode came out, because like I read the first issue and I was like, I am all in on this. It made me a fan of Justin. It made me a fan of Trad,
Cool.
and they were both at Baltimore that year. So like,
rad.
Talked to them, and I got a sketch from Trad, and just you know, again, just chatted up with them, and always saw them at shows, saw them at shows, and you become friends with people.
Yeah.
Like I was like, he's my show friend. Like I don't really, but like then at, the last time I went to Heroes, he was there, and I was in line for somebody else, and he was signing. He looked at me, he's like, "Oh my god, how you been, man?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, he does like me." Like
That's so cool.
And then we like hung out at the bar that night, and I was like, "Hey, like," because by then I was working in the shop, and I was like, "I'd love to get you in the shop sometime."
Yeah.
I was like, "Where you living now?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to come down." And so, and I'd email him once a year or so anyway, just to see how he's doing, tell him what I like. If he's working on something, tell him I dug it. And it just went like that for a couple of years. And I'm like, hey, like this year, you got any wiggle room? And he's like, well, I can't do it this year. I'm like, all right, no worries, man. Like, hope you're doing good. And then the next year, hey, man, this book you're doing is great. Can you come down? He's like, I probably can't do this. And then the last year, like in January, I hit him up, and I think he was doing Doctor Strange. And I was like, hey, dude, it's beautiful. I love it. And I didn't even bring up him coming to the shop. I was like, hope you're doing well. Book looks great. Hopefully I'll catch you at a show. And he was like, hey man, I might actually have time this year. Like, what do you got? Like, and I was like, oh my God. Okay.
You locked in.
So for years, like I felt like an idiot, because I was like, one day we're going to get him in, guys. We're going to get him in. Like we've had Justin a bunch. We're going to get Trad in. And everyone's like, okay, sure thing. Erik's talking out his ass again. And so I was like, well, like we could do free comic book day, or maybe bring in for like when the trade comes out. And he was like, well, free comic book day might be good. Or no, the year before, I think we had talked about it. He's like, well, I have a wedding or something. I was like, all right. And then the next year he's like, hey, I got time. And he's like, well, free comic book day, like, what would that entail? Would I have to do sketching? And the way I set up signings is like, do what you want.
Yeah.
I tell people, set up like you do at a show. You can sell stuff at your table.
Yeah.
We can sell the thing. You want to sketch? Great. You don't want to sketch? Great. Like, and so I was like, well, free comic day is kind of busy. You don't have to sketch if you don't want to, but like, it's an event.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if we brought you in when the trade comes out instead? Like, make it a little easier. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm in.
More breathing room for that too.
Yeah. And then,
which was great, because I got to have like a great conversation with him.
Yeah, that's it. Like everyone had time. And
yeah.
He's such a cool dude that like we went out to lunch a couple times, and like everyone that went on lunch was like, he just took the time to focus, talk to everybody. Like he's a different type of person.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's not for show.
Well, even after the movie, we all saw the mask together and everything, and just hang out in the lobby. And I was like, I don't want to bother Trad. It's Trad. And then just hung out, and he just wanted to talk for like 20 minutes. And I was like, that was the coolest thing in the world.
Like me and Lori always talk about it. Like, I think I saw him look at his phone twice the entire weekend.
Yeah.
Like, and at the time he's like, yeah, I just want to kind of go out and live in a cabin in the woods and work on something. And I'm like, and anybody else would be like, sure thing. But like for him, I believe it.
It makes sense,
But yeah, we finally made that happen. And because I was like, hey, like, I'll fly in, like, you don't have to, but like to help recoup cost and make it worth your while, we'll do like a raffle sometimes. Would you want to do one? He's like, oh yeah, sure.
Oh, cool.
And so like, I'm expecting like one head shot, sketch, whatever. And then he's like, yeah, I might do like 3. And I was like,
sick.
Okay, yeah.
Did like Fantastic Four,
Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, and Luther Strode.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like,
who did the Fantastic Four one that I'm thinking of? Oh, it's Tom
Scholl. Again, I was like, hey, we want to do a raffle? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he showed up with 3 pieces.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? what? And I don't enter my own raffles, like, because I'm like, it's not fair. But for trad, I was like, okay, because John, who worked at the shop, was like a diehard trad fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys can enter this one
The one time.
the one time. And John won the Luther Strode one.
Oh, of course.
Which was awesome. But
that's good for him too.
Yeah. But like, I like Trad's such a cool dude that he was like, oh yeah, I did 3. And he did them in like his hotel the night before.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he's like, yeah, I went to bed at like 3, like whatever. But again, for the back to the signings, like I want the shop to be the place people want to do a signing at, because I try to keep it low key. Like it's not, I don't make demands. Like it's not like, well, you have to do this and you have to. It's like, do you want to do a raffle? Because the money that we've spent on the raffle is to buy the tickets.
Oh, cool.
That's it. And so if you're going to put in the time and effort and like it gets people to come in, I'd like to make it worth your while. Because some people drive, some people. I mean, Kelly Williams flew himself in for free Day, which is awesome. And I tried, and hopefully he made some money back. I know he sold some pages. And Kelly's cool as hell. Yeah,
really cool dude. He was so nice.
But again, I try to leave it up to the people that are doing the signing. Like, I mean, even for trad, I was like, do you want to just sell like a raffle a script or like a signed copy of whatever? But
even that would have been sick.
Yeah, anything. Like anything's cool.
Yeah, like, fans that eat that up no matter what.
Yeah, like I mean, Jim did. The first time we had Jim Ruggan, he did an amazing Street Angel piece. The second time he did a cool Hulk piece.
That's cool.
Some people just will have like a signed book or they'll personalize it. I mean, Philip Kennedy Johnson, he raffled off like his script for Alien 1.
Oh, wow.
And then the next time he was like, oh, I got an Alien script and I've got a Superman script.
Oh, that's sick.
Sure. Great.
Yeah.
Like, because again, anything's cool. People like free stuff.
Yeah.
Free. Yeah. You know, you pay a raffle ticket. And again, I try not to make it prohibitively expensive. Like, you want to buy a raffle ticket? They're $1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you get 7 for 5. I want creators. I want to enjoy coming in and want to come back. And fans, if it's not your first time to shop, I want you to come to the shop and go, oh man, I met Trad Moore. Yeah. And I won this thing.
I mean, that was the coolest part, walking in for my first time. Justin Jordan's there. Like, how rad. Like, what a cool free comic book day event going in this small city in Virginia. That we wound up, you know what I mean?
Mike says all the time, we're in Winchester, Virginia. We shouldn't be well known. Right?
Yeah.
Because we'd go to retailer things and Mike looks, you know, back then he looked like Weird Al. He had curly hair. He always wears this green velour hoodie, and people would be like, hey, I know that guy. Like,
that's sick.
And it's cool, like, because the videos we do on Tuesday night, like, I've gone to shows and like creators be like, why do I know you? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you do that video. And I'm like, yes, I do. This is very strange. Like,
yeah.
Because in my mind, it's into a vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like Mike says, I'm like, we should not be known. Like, we're a small shop in Winchester, Virginia. But because of that, I want it to be cool. Like,
yeah.
I would have killed for this when I was a kid.
And
I didn't go to a convention until I was like 19.
Yeah, honestly, same. It took me, I actually played shows at conventions before I went as like a comic book fan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was El Paso had a cool Comic Con that they'd bring in like all the local bands and try to do like a battle of the bands thing almost. Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. It turns out they were ripping people off in the long run, which got shut down. But like having that opportunity and being able to be exposed to that, you know, there was really rad.
I mean, because growing up, I didn't know Baltimore Comic Con existed. I didn't know SPX existed. And they're right down the road.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, I'd see Comic Cons in Wizard.
Yeah.
And be like, oh man, I'll never get to go to
Same.
Chicago.
Yeah. And now it's crazy that like all of our dream cons were just like, oh, I get to like hit that up. Like Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore is where it all began for me 2 years ago.
That's what you had said.
Yeah. If I went up there, I just lost my job. I just moved up here. And then like I met Dan from CWS and like that's where all this kind of snowballed. You'll never know what happens if you just show up to some of these events and like who you'll meet and the networking wise, like that's what's so great about them.
I would not have gotten Trad in the shop if I wouldn't have gone to Baltimore Comic Con because I like that comic.
Right.
Or like Jim Rugg, you know, like I liked his stuff. I liked Ed's stuff. And then I got super to kayfabe when they started. And then it's like, okay, well, let me look at, oh man, you're only in Pittsburgh. Hey, why don't you come down?
Yeah.
Tom Scioli or, you know, you make those connections.
Yeah. And it's cool because I went to Heroes and then Tom came up and he was just like, hey man, how's everything going? I was like, oh, fucking Tom. Like, it's so rad. Like, thanks for coming up to say hi. Like,
it's a much smaller community than you think.
Yeah.
You know?
And artists and creators are so much nicer than you realize most of the time too.
Yes.
You know?
And that's like, I don't get starstruck often because most of the time, like after a couple shows, you realize like, oh, they're just people.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be those people. Like the first time I met Garth Ennis, I was just like,
Oh yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, hey, it's Garth Ennis, you know. But there's always gonna be somebody. But that's why I like, you know, you get him in the shop, and it's not as intimidating as like this giant convention.
Yeah.
Because like if you're a regular, you're like, well, they're just sitting by the front door. Like this is nothing. I can do
Yeah.
or like the flip side of that, well, I've had customers like, oh, I just don't want to bother them. Like, dude, they're here
Yeah,
to talk to you.
be bothered. Yeah,
Like,
go talk to them.
and then they'll be like, he was so cool. She was so cool. Like, it's awesome. And that's how it should be. Like, comics should be for everybody, and you should just be able to jump right into it.
Exactly. And so you do this awesome charity as well at the shop.
Yeah.
How did that start up? And like, tell us about it a little bit.
It's my favorite thing we do. And it was all spur of the moment. Like,
oh wow,
the words. Diamond had a sale on sketch covers, and they were like $1. And I was like, and we had an event coming up. We had a Halloween event coming up, and it was Carla McNeil, Jeremy Viner, and his wife Ashley. I feel bad because I can't remember her name. Kelsey, a local gal who did really cool art. And I was like, well, hey, let's get some of these sketch covers. And I talked to Mike, and I was like, what if we got local? And I talked to Steve, like we all kind of shot it around. Like, what if we got people to draw on the sketch stuff? I know we've got local artists. What if we like auction them off and like had a charity thing, did something nice? And I was like, Mike, what should we donate to? And Mike's like, oh, LVWA, I donate to them all the time. Oh. They're local. They promote literacy volunteers, Winchester area is what it stands for. And Mike's like, yeah, sure. Let's try it. So like got a couple, got basically everyone there that day did a cover. And then that was in October. And the next weekend, a girl named Katie used to work with us, and me and Katie went down to North Carolina to NC Comic Con. And it was like, it happens every year. That was the first year, and every year since. Every time I'm like, well, I don't know, it might not work. And then you get like one or two, and you're like, oh no, this is going to be good. And so we went to NC Comic Con and got Mateo Scalera and Jim Mafood. Matt Kent did 2.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh, and I dropped one off with Mike Perkins. Like, and I was like, oh, this is okay. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, and the first year I was like, we might raise $1,000. Like, and I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to show up with like a check, like here. Yeah. But I hit up Jimmy Palmiotti, and his manager was like, well, we need their tax ID for tax purposes. And I was like, oh, okay. So I called, and I was like, hey, like I work at the shop. We want to do this thing. And the guy, Mark, who used to work, was like, wait, what? What do you want to do? And I was like, we just want to like we want to get these blank covers and auction off and give you guys the money. And he's like, can I come by and talk to you? Like, that sounds really cool. And I was like, sure. And then he came by and he was just like, what, why, what? Like it wasn't like in a bad way. He was just like, you want to do something nice for no reason. And the first year we made like $2,200. Oh man. And Jeff Lemire was the other one we got down at NC Comic Con.
Oh man, that's so cool.
Which for like, no, and at the time I couldn't even remember what LVWA was called. So they're like, what's it for? And I was like, it's for like Winchester literacy volunteers, I think. And so I'm sure like, I know how I look. I'm sure people are like, this guy's just stealing art. And we had local artists. Like I did one the first couple years. Steve did one the first year. Mike did one the first year. Cause we were like, let's just get whatever we can.
Yeah.
And we had like 52 covers the first year. Oh, wow. Cause we had the wall. And then I think maybe we had 62 because we had just enough for like the case and the wall. Mm-hmm. And we were like, well, let's try. Like, you know, and like our big one that year went for like 150 or something. I was like, this is crazy. Because again, I was like, maybe we'll make 1,000. And it did really well. And so we were like, well, let's keep it going. And so anytime there's a blank cover for sale, I buy it.
Oh, cool.
And then we just, I'll bother anybody. Like I talk about being starstruck, but like I'm over it. Like I'll bother anybody because it's for a good cause.
Yeah.
And the worst they can say is no.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love going to shows anyway. And again, like I said earlier, like I love collecting art. Maybe not everyone wants to go to a show and
or have the ability to even go to a show to get that sketch, or have the finances to, commission a sketch like that.
And we get really good artists, and we're still flying under the radar. Like one part of me would love for this thing to be huge. Mm-hmm. And the other part of me likes that it's kind of local, because like Angie got a Terry Dodson cover for $20.
Gosh, that's cool.
Because we used to do starting bids were 10 for local artists, 20 for a professional.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
And then
That's fair. You know what I mean?
And then
Yeah.
2 years ago, I was like, you know what? Screw it. $20. Starting
Nice.
bid all across the board.
Mhm.
And you might get something really cool for $20. And like,
Honestly.
I love the ones that kids do.
Yeah, I love how you accept all
Yeah,
levels
'cause
of
again, it's for a
covers.
good
Like,
cause.
yeah,
Like, I'm not gonna say like you're not good enough.
yeah, yeah.
Because again, like why? Like if some little kid brings me some stick figure, I'm not gonna be like nerd.
This
And
ain't
like
gonna sell.
kill
Like,
his dreams.
yeah,
Like in my mind, the kid that's 11 is just as cool as
yeah.
getting a David Finch.
And it's like that kid had the guts to go and put his art
Yeah.
or their art on page on a cover and go into like that's hard for me to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like I
wouldn't
have
been
those
able to do that when I was
covers.
a kid.
No way. Even now, like I was, taking all those covers last time I was there, and I was like, man, this is gonna be such a challenge. Like I'm already intimidated, and I was like, well, I got to get over it. This is gonna be the year.
My friend Coop, who has done covers for a couple years, he's a local artist. You've probably seen Coop stickers all over town.
Oh yeah. Actually, yeah.
That's one year he got like he got like a heavy metal blank, and he's like, "Oh man, I got a good idea." Well, then Jim Mafood did a heavy metal, and he was like, "I can't do it." And I was like, "No, dude, like you're just." He's like, "I can't do it. Let me get something else." Like, and again, like for me, I'm like, it's all cool. Like,
yeah.
And
I would totally do a Tarna like on a heavy metal cover.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
so
man.
sick. That's
like,
right.
and it sucks that now I can't get them anymore. Like I loved it, and I love the weirdo magazine size ones, or like. I have they did the facsimile of Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Oh, wow.
And it's treasury size blank.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not putting it in the list because I send people a list of everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, pick whatever you want. The only rules are nothing too mature. And if it says Batman, you don't have to draw Batman.
Oh, cool.
Because like the first year, like a high school girl just drew like a beautiful rose on a Supergirl cover.
Oh, cool.
And it's one of my favorite ones we've ever had.
Yeah.
And again, and I like letting people pick because then you get surprises. Like Martin Simmons has a Kiss one right now.
Sick, dude.
And I'm
That's
like,
so
I
rad.
want some Martin Simmons draw Kiss.
Like,
and so you get cool stuff like that. But where's I going with that? But I'm keeping that one Superman Muhammad Ali because I'm like, I want to offer that to some certain people.
Yeah.
Because I want somebody to really knock that.
Go crazy on something that big. Yeah.
And like that, again, not to downplay any other artist, but like I have in my mind what I want. But I don't want to like say that to people.
Yeah.
Now that I've said it. But no, like it all started like that, and then we did 2,200 the first year, and then the next year I was like, if we just make what we made last year, I'm cool. And then we made like 4,000, and then and the next year, I don't know what year this was. Year 5, 6, I don't know. And like Mike's always like, "Nah, we're gonna make 8,000." I'm like, I don't know, like, and then I stress, and then we make 8,000. Or like last year, Andy from LVWA. He was the head of LVWA, was like, if you make 11,000 whatever, we'll have made $40,000 since you started.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that'd be cool, but I don't know. And then we made like
12 or 15. Yeah.
It was crazy. And that's the thing with each year too. Like now, like I've got kind of my basic thing I'll send to new people and be like, hey, my name's Eric. I work at this shop. We do this charity. We've raised. And then, it was like, we've raised 2,000, we've raised 4,000, we've raised 27,000, we've raised over 40,000.
Yeah.
Like that shows that it's legit. And I always put the website. And I mean, it's cool because like I've got a deadline. Like the auction runs from April 1st through Free Comic Book Day, first Saturday in May. So about a month. And we keep them all up in the shop. And, but it's like, and a couple years ago, we started doing a live stream. No, actually, from the first year we did it. We did it at Escutcheon when Lori still worked there. And just showed off all the covers, like on Sunday night, and then the auction starts Monday.
Oh, cool.
And so we're like, hey, here's this. It's by this person. Here's this. And just to give everyone a little heads up. And
how exhausting is that now? The more books you have in hand, like
152 this year.
Oh, whoa.
And I figured out that is my limit. Because we had no space. Like
I bet
the sleeves we have on the wall, I got every single one we had in the shop. We filled the case. We had bigger pieces. That's the thing every year now. Like it started as just covers. And then Sonny Eam, who's a local artist, like did a painting one year. And it was wet when he dropped it off. And that's the tradition now. Is like Sonny drops off the painting and be like, yep, there it is. We've had Mike painted a big miniature one year.
Oh, cool.
A lady, we had a blanket that a lady made for like a GoFundMe Mike had years before. Like she made it after the fact. She said, well, if you do another one, and I was like, can we put that in the charity?
That's sick.
So it was like an Avengers blanket.
Oh, that's sick.
What else we had? We had sculptures. We've had signed books, like a customer donated like a CGC signed Greg Capullo book one year. But again, like I'm like, it's all for good cause. Why
Mhm.
not? Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so we do the live stream to show them all off, and then it's like, okay, starts as soon as we open on April 1st, whatever day of the week that is, and it never fails. I'll get something on April 2nd.
Always. Yeah.
And I'm like, and I got a message being like, I'm so sorry, you can't be in this year's because I've already showed everything off, but you'll be in next year's. And so like I've already got like 12 for next year.
Oh, wow.
And this year I have to talk to some artists because some people have like 5 to 10 covers, but I can't have. I got to put a limit on some stuff. 'Cause again, once I reach 152, that's
you're doing it.
and I'd love to have 10 pieces. Like last year, somebody did 9 Spider-Man covers with different logos,
Oh,
and
wow.
the backs all made a corner box. And I was hoping somebody would buy them all, and it didn't work out that way. But they were really cool. I love that they took a swing on
Yeah.
them. Or like the kid John who worked at the shop, now he's back at the Kubert School. When he was like in high school, he did like 8 one.
Oh, wow.
And it's awesome. But now I got to go like maybe like 5.
Yeah. Lower just a bit.
Just to be safe. Like, and maybe at the end, like once we're getting down to the wire, I'm like, all right, screw it, give me 20. But I try, like, I always get stuff in late. And like next year, like I have covers, and then there's a guy named Elrod who's a local guy. He always does covers for us. Always knocks it out of the park. Always, like, if it's a wrap cover, he fills it. He'll draw stuff on the inside. He's making a Mandalorian toy for us this year. Like he bought a Mandalorian. He's painting it like 4 colors.
Oh wow! Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, he gave us one of the things we have this year is a Hot Wheels car. And it's a purple Batmobile, but he like painted so it's the Joker's face says like ha ha.
That's
like,
sick.
And I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all for good cause. Like literacy volunteers are amazing. They help with adult literacy. They teach computer literacy. They help people gain their citizenship.
Oh wow,
they're amazing. Like
that's sick.
I love everything they do. Tonight, actually, when I leave here, they're showing a movie about illiteracy in the Shenandoah Valley down at the library.
Oh wow,
so I'm going to that.
That's cool. Nice.
But again, like I love reading. I wish more people love reading, and like I want that to spread. And if I can do it through comics, great. If I can get people some cool art, awesome.
Yeah.
Like the one year, I mean, and we've had everybody. We had a 7-year-old girl. We've had David Finch did one last year. That's our record bid.
That was a cool one.
Johnson did one year. Trad's supposed to do one. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
He's probably like living on a mountain somewhere. Thomas Lennon from Reno 911.
Oh, what?
He accidentally followed me on Twitter, and I was like, that means I can message you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey man, like we do this thing, and he's like, you know, I'm a comedian, right? And I was like, yeah, but it's for a good cause. He's like, all right, sure,
cool, have fun with it.
So like that's an Emmy winner who we've had.
Yeah.
I've sent them out to my friends who are like famous wrestlers, and they never come back.
Oh.
Because I wanted to be like, hey, this guy's like on Raw. We have this, and it just never comes back. Who else have we had? When we've had like some of my favorite artists. Who do we have this year so far that I sent them out to? Chris Bachalo did one. Yildiray Sonar is doing 2 of them that he just sent me a picture of the other day. Goran Suzuka, I got to hit up because he's done a couple. We've had I need somebody from Asia and somebody from Africa. We'll have every continent.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
John Somariva from Australia did one the one year. He's got one. I got to hit him up. Kari Randolph's doing one this year. Who else? Corinne Halbert. I'm going to drop one off with her at SPX this weekend. And that's it because I love all comics.
Yeah.
I'll hit up anybody.
Yeah.
Like Pete Bagg did one year.
Oh, whoa. That's sick.
He did a Spider-Man, and it's amazing. Like you look at it, you're like, Pete Bagg drew that Spider-Man. Who else?
You had what? Sean Phillips do one too.
Sean Phillips and Jacob Phillips, because Mark Jackson, who you had on the show.
Oh,
like whenever I got involved with him, I was like, hey, like, oh, we did a live stream.
That's right, because he's in the UK and everything, so we got that done for you guys.
I did the thing like an unboxing of his books, and then I was like, hey, gonna put you on the spot. We do this thing. Would you want to do it? He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. So cool. And then he's like, hey, I'm going to this convention, and I know these people. Do you want one? And I was like, yes. So we got Charlie Adlard. Which was cool because we have some big Walking Dead people at the shop. I bet. And this was the first year we did a live bid off because it was like 5 minutes to go. And the last 15 minutes, half an hour of the charity every year is chaos because like we're a small operation.
Yeah.
And I try to let people know that when I'm shipping stuff out, like, hey, there's 2 full-time employees and only one of us can go to the post office. So like that last 15 minutes, like we have the shop computer open. Mike's got his laptop. When Steve was there, Steve would have his laptop. And so people would be messaging on Facebook and Mike would be like, okay, number 80 is at 55. I'm like, okay. And then we'd update the Facebook, we'd update the Excel spreadsheet.
Oof, yeah.
Then the phone would ring and be like, hey, I want to bid on this and this. And this year was the first year I couldn't keep up. Like, because the last 5 minutes, one person on Facebook was like, add $5 to this.
Oh, wow.
This. And so some people were like, oh, no, I won this. I'm like, you didn't. Because like I was doing this. But I love it.
It's crazy like how overwhelming it is, but like how positive it is that it's overwhelming, you know?
And so the Walking Dead one, like the two guys that wanted it, like they were never in the shop at the same time leading up to it. So like one would come in on a Wednesday and be like, what's that one at? It's at 100. All right, put it at 105. It was the slowest bidding war ever. And then like the next guy would come in back, what's that? 105? 110. And like it just kept going. And then they're both in there. And like the one guy was standing beside Mike and he'd be like, all right, make 150. And then the other guy would on his phone would message me on Facebook and go, make it 120. And then we're getting down to it and like it's getting tense. They weren't mad at each other. They're both like, because they both really wanted it. And I was like, okay, Walking Dead guys, stop. We're gonna get done because at 5 o'clock we're done. We're not taking bids. At 5 o'clock, you can live bid. And so we got done, and then I was like, okay, go. And they're like 150, 155, 160, 165. And like it got down to whatever. And the one guy was like, all right, man, it's yours. And it was cool because then they shook hands, and then he was like, how high would you have gone, man?
Yeah.
Like, and I love that.
It's a funner competition. It's not like in haste.
They weren't jerks to each other.
Mhm.
Like they weren't like, you don't love it like I do. Like, and that's all because Mark hooked us up like big time. Like I never thought I'd get a Charlie Adler Walking Dead cover. Like
that's sick.
When he said like, oh, I can get a Charlie Adler, I like had to go to eBay and order a Walking Dead cover just for that. And then again, like letting people pick, like Sean Phillips drew a James Bond cover.
Yeah.
And Jacob Phillips did a Philadelphia. And I'm like,
that's
okay.
what I remember, the James Bond one. That's what I remember. I was so
and I
sick,
love that.
yeah.
I love letting people pick it. And it's my favorite thing we do because it's just for cool. It's for good cause. And like, it's comic art. And again, like,
plus there's such a variety, like the amount of bids that'll be going in, you have such a high chance of getting one by like a creator you just love and admire that you'd never be able to get a cover from them before.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, the David Finch one, like I said, was our highest bid and it went for $750. And that's still pretty good.
So pretty good for a David Finch.
Yeah. Commission. Like when I got that one, again, I've learned to just say screw it and try. Because it was at AwesomeCon. And some people dog on AwesomeCon because it's a lot of pop culture stuff. Yeah. But if there's a comic artist you love that's there, the lines aren't as long. Yeah,
it's your moment. I mean, I got to hang out with Jason Aaron at Buffalo. There was nobody at his table, like nobody, and I was just hung out with him for a few minutes. Yeah.
And so David, like Jason from Essential Sequentials, hooked us up from year one. He got us at Matteo Scalera.
Oh,
because I was like, hey, like I've got this little stack of covers, and Jason was looking through, or Matteo was looking through, and Jason's like, hey man, I'll trade you a Black Science cover for that Avengers one. I was like, yes. Yeah. And so then at AwesomeCon, I was like, hey, like, I know you probably don't remember, it's been a couple years we do this thing. He's like, oh yeah, man, sure. And I was like, do you think David would want to do one? And he was like, I don't know, David, you want to do this thing for charity? He's like, yeah. And because there's no line, he just like, I was like, here's what I have. And he's like, Batman, I can draw the Joker. I was like, and he was like, just going at it. And like, for like an hour. Just noodling away, and like somebody would come up, sign something, and I'd step aside and he'd sign it, and then he'd get right back to it.
Oh, that's so cool.
And again, that one jumped up pretty immediately. But like 750s, it's to me a lot of money, but like for someone that really wants it, it's nothing.
Yeah, honestly.
What was the one we had there? I mean, Martin Marazzo, he does Ice Cream Man, and like he's another like internet friend, like, and so he's another one. I was like, well, maybe he'll do it, and every year he has killed it. He did a Silver Surfer the one year.
Oh, wow. That'd be great. Yeah, I could see like, that.
Wrap cover, beautiful. And then he did the Dreaming last year. This year he's got a Superman.
I think I remember that Dreaming one then last year. Yeah.
The Daniel Warren Johnson one we had, the last time I went to Heroes, I was like, hey, we do this thing. He's like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, and I was like, well, here's what I got. He's like, oh, Thor, I can draw Beta Ray Bill. And I'm thinking head sketch. Yeah. And every year I think it's just going to be head sketch. And I'd be more than happy with it. Yeah. Like, again, like
still great. I'm
asking an artist to do work for free.
Yeah. And so for them to go all out or just like give you like high quality stuff, no matter what, I'd be happy with a doodle. But like, so I dropped it off and I went back and he wasn't there. And I was like, hey, like Daniel here, I dropped this thing off. And Yam from Felix was like, oh no, he just left to go to the airport. And I was like, shoot. And I was like, I dropped this cover off with him. He's like, well, let me text him. And he was like,
what's your email, man? He'll email you back. And so I was like, all right, cool. And then next week he's like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like I had to bounce. I was like, oh, no worries, man. Like, and then like a week later, he's like, hey, I can't find that cover. Like, but I've got a Carnage one. Is that cool? I was like, dude, whatever you want to draw is great. And then on his social media, he posted this Beta Ray Bill cover and I was like, I wonder if that's right. And then like the next day it showed up and it was again a wrap cover and like textured, like you could feel the rocks. And that was our high bid for the longest time. It was like $550, which again, pretty good for like a full color Daniel Warren Johnson commission. And that's why I love this, because like it's a chance. And we get people that bid from all over the country. We have a couple like big players that come in every year and they're like, I want to do this, which is awesome. But then it's cool when you get the local people that are like, no, I want that.
Well, it's also what's cool is that you have a mixture of these bigger names that we all admire and look up to, and like we probably can't get that, that sketch or any other way but this. And then it's right next to indie creators. It's right next to local people. It's right next to kid. Yeah,
like because I just do them in alphabetical order.
Oh, cool, nice.
Because that's just easier for my mind.
Yeah, makes sense when you're handling that many numbers and everything.
I love that we have local people that now have a following. Like Sonny's Painting comes in, and like every year there's people that are like, I'm throwing down on that. Like he did a Stan Lee the first year. He did an Edgar Allan Poe the second year, and then last year he did an H.P. Lovecraft. And my friend Jamie, who does art every year, like always missed out on that painting at the end. And so this year Jamie's mom was in and was like, she was so nervous. It was adorable. She's like, Jamie gave me this much and I could bid on it. And I was like, you're winning so far. And then she'd be like, go ahead and put another 100 on it. Like,
oh my God.
She's like, I don't want Jamie to be upset. And Jamie's amazing. Jamie like works at a barbecue place in Edinburgh and like was in a metal band when I was a teenager.
Oh my gosh, that's rad.
And now like he did like during lockdown, especially like every week he'd come in and get his comics and he'd be like, here's another one. Like it'd be like a full 11x17 piece. And then he did a 5 11x17 pages. He did a giant Cthulhu one year. And it was amazing. And I was like, God, I hope somebody local with this. So I don't have to ship it. But again, like, that's why I love it. Because, like, now there are people that are like, oh, man, like, what's Sonny going to do? What's Jamie going to do? What's Coop going to do? Like, and I love that there's, like, local people that are getting big. Or Angie's this year. Angie did an amazing Daredevil piece. And like, we had customers, like, fighting for it.
Oh, man, that's
which
sick.
I love.
Yeah.
Like,
especially because it's, like, your homegrown stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's what's rad about it.
It's the best. It's the best thing we do.
And I mean, gosh, so it's like 4Color, just it's such a cool and unique shop because of everything. You know what I mean? You have a great community presence, you have a welcoming staff, you have a knowledgeable staff, you're doing events that benefit like literacy, you're doing events for Free Comic Book Day, for Halloween, your summer sale where you could really like, mark down books and sell them like crazy. Like you guys are a shop that's always active and you're always doing something to benefit somebody else besides yourselves, and that's very unique.
I want to run the shop that I want to go to, and coincidentally it just happens to be the shop that I worked at as a kid or went to shopped at. Like I want, and I think all shops should be that. You want to be a shop that people want to go to. And whether that's just if you're cool,
honestly, like whenever, and you know this too, like whenever I have a rough day, I'm just like, I'm gonna go swing by 4Color and grab a book and just like hang out with Eric.
Mike always says it. Mike's like, you're the bartender for nerds.
Yeah, honestly.
And like the customers are my friends. Like if they're having a bad day, like, man, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, dude. Every time I swing by the shop, whenever I'm just like, man, I'm having a rough day, just like, I grab a couple books, we hang out for a bit. I leave. I'm always like, I feel better now.
And that's
like
how it was when I didn't work there. Like I'd go by and just talk to Mike. Like I could just talk about comics or whatever, or just be like, my job's pissing me off. And like that's how it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of customers have become good friends. I've gone to their houses. I've like hung out. Like it's the best. Like why not? We're a bar for nerds.
Yeah.
Because no matter like if I'm having a bad day, like my worst day at the shop is better than my worst day at another job.
True. Honestly, yeah.
Like I took a pay cut to come back, but I didn't wake up every day like, oh, here we go. Like even again, you can't go through life liking everybody. I have bad days with customers. I have bad days with whatever, but like I'm still getting to do what I love.
Exactly.
And I want that to transfer to the customers.
Yeah. And I think it does. I think it's really unique. And, that's why I wanted you guys to be on the show so bad, because it just stood out.
Of course. To get the word out, let people know. Like, I want people to come in.
Yeah, like
Even if you don't buy anything, just come by and check out our cool shop. I'm biased. I think we're awesome.
and if like indie creators want to get their books in your shop, what's the best way
Hit
to
us
do it
up,
for them?
man. Email us, call us, DM us on any of our social medias.
Yeah.
I'd love to carry your books
That's awesome.
because I love comics, and if it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. Like and that's life.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be like, oh, you wrote a comic about I don't know, a clown who's a lawyer. No, bring it in, man.
Yeah, actually, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
Like, I want to read it, and I want to sell it to people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if like, I mean, heck, like be in your relationship, man. Like,
Yeah.
if it was just selling your comics, great. But like, you and I become friends. And
Yeah.
like, I want to sell whatever you got.
Yeah.
And you bring me cool stuff from other people. I want to sell that, and I want to tell people about how cool that is.
Yeah, and it was super cool hearing about like Cosmic Lion books being in your shop,
Yeah,
Morgan's and all that. Like,
it's funny because you're like, hey, check these guys out. And so I made a point when I was doing previews, like, okay, that book Brandon told me about sounds awesome. Let's get a couple copies.
yeah, and that's the cool part. And plus, it grows. It gives us encouragement, and it's unique. You know, not everyone has the shop as cool as yours nearby them, but it's good to know that these shops exist for them to reach out.
Yeah, there are good shops out there. And if it's not your local shop, man, if you're making comics in Texas or California, and you want, I'll sell your stuff, man. I mean, I sell Mark Jackson stuff. He's from the UK.
Oh yeah.
And I love his stuff. It's goofy and weird and so bizarre, and I love it.
The Magnum PI stuff, I love it, dude. It's so great.
Actually, I gotta hit him up because I'm supposed to get his new stuff.
I got to get a copy of that too. Yeah,
but like, I just love comics, man. I want to, and Mike loves comics, and Angie loves comics, and we want to tell people about them. And I like Aubrey Sitterson. I love anything he does. And he was just cold calling shops when he had his wrestling comic coming out. And it just like, he was like, hey man, I'm Aubrey Sitterson. I was like, oh dude, I ordered that book. It looks great. And then we got talking about wrestling, and like a friend of mine had been on his podcast, and now I'll support anything he does. And it's a small thing. Call the shop. A phone call goes a long way with me. Yeah. That's effort. Like,
again, showing up. Yeah. You know, just showing up a little bit.
And I'll take an email. Like, but you can tell what's a form email and what's not. But like, put some effort in, man. Like, and not, you don't have to do a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Just show me a cool comic and I want to check it out. I want to spread the word of comics. That's what it's all about. And whether that's Superman, Batman, or Apollo City or whatever, like, even if we get a couple copies, I want people to see it.
I love it, dude. So rad. Eric, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome. Like, we'll definitely do it again sometime.
For sure.
This has been just like, maybe we'll do it at the shop or something. It'd be super fun.
Yeah, talk to Angie, talk to Mike. Mike will talk your ear off.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it's been, we wanted to bring a shop on for the first time to show creators a shop like you is out there.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time, the struggle of creators finding places to put their books, whether it be online, and the struggles of conventions and all this type of stuff, but it's good to know that there's avenues and people that are always willing to support indie.
Listen, as long as you're not a jerk and your comic's not about like weird racist stuff, I'm in.
I love it.
Let's spread the word of comics, man. And other shops, man. Help out your local indie creators. Why not?
And you've even told me about other shops to like go hit up these guys, go talk to them about putting
Chris
your shop
at
in.
Secret Lair in Harrisonburg is awesome. He just loves comics. When Sarah, I haven't been to the shop since Sarah left, but comic book shop in Delaware, great shop. They had indie stuff. They'd have local creators. Like it's the most minimal effort for a shop. You don't even like, most creators are just happy to come in, like set up a table.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to sell their book, like you can do consignment. Like, it's the bar is so low for shops to help out indie creators. It's so easy. And then you might make cool relationships. And and that creator now might be doing Batman in a couple years, and they'll remember that you weren't a dick.
And then you go sign a shop, give the shop business. You know what I mean? It's all a circle. You know what I mean? It's what it all comes down to. And that's what I feel like the indie community is so much about. And it's turning that attitude so much more of like, it's not competition with us anymore. It's all like, how can we support each other
100%.
And give each other resources? No one's trying to hide secrets. We're all just like, you know what, this is what I did. Try this out. I talked to this person, go hit them up.
Absolutely.
And it benefits. It helps us all out. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you hanging out today.
Man, I appreciate you. This was awesome.
And, all of our audience, I know we were hanging out on a different format today, and I was like zoned into this conversation. But, don't forget, check out CWS for all of our templates, all of our printing, anything you guys need. We do Spilled Ink every single Thursday, and we have a lot of new content coming your way. And as always, thanks for hanging. Stay creative and stay inspired. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Inspired Ink featuring Erik Jones of Color Fantasies. And if you're a comic creator ready to bring your vision to life, look no further than Comix Wellspring. We're not just printers, we're your partners in creativity. And with our exceptional customer service, you'll never feel lost in the process. And if you need your comics fast, our lightning quick turnaround times have got you covered. And if you have those big ideas, our industry-leading bulk pricing options make large print runs a breeze. Don't let your masterpiece gather dust on your hard drive. Click the link on the screen now, and let's turn your pages into reality.